Good day. Today I wanted to do a cut test and a battle between the Buck Selkirk, and I'll talk about this one in a moment because I'm not exactly sure what it is. We'll talk about that. And also the Mtech Extreme Stealth Strike, which looks something like that. And apparently it's supposed to be in 440C steel. So we'll put that one to the test and see what it cuts like. Comes in just your standard hard plastic case, which works okay but doesn't look to be that tough. In fact, it's separating there, so that retention might play up after a while. And I'm wondering if actually when you put the sheath into it, the knife into the sheath, if it's actually dulling the blade a bit. I can see where it's rubbing up there, and I saw some groove marks on the edge, and I thought, where did that come from? And I think it might be from this sheath. It's actually dulling it every time you put it in. So I have to look into that one. Anyway, it's fairly solid and fairly thick. I'm not going to do a review on these. All I'm doing is testing the performance. You can do a review, look up reviews on that. There's plenty around. Now this one, we need to have a bit of a chat about it. I bought this on Aliexpress, and Buck gets these knives actually made in China. So the factory there possibly has a number of excess knives that they flog off into the market. So when I compare this with the Buck knife, I can't find any difference. So I'm just wondering if the factory are selling these off and that is the actual Buck knife, or is it a fake? And if it's a fake, why would they try and create this fake cheap China knife, even though it's not cheap from Buck, because Buck sells it for over $100 Australian, so that's not actually cheap. But I bought it cheap, and so I'm just wondering, or do they have the blueprints and they just get a cheap steel and just make a whole heap in a cheaper steel? So we're going to be testing that today. But even the original steel is 420HC, which really is not an elaborate steel in any way. So it's a fairly cheap steel, and yeah, it's tough, but it certainly doesn't have a lot of edge retention in that steel. So I don't know exactly what that is. It looks like a real Buck. It feels like a real Buck. It's a small handle, so I gave it actually to my wife for Christmas to use, and she quite likes it. Seems like that's Micarta or G10 or whatever it's supposed to be. Feels quite nice. And so we're going to do a cut test between the two of them. Different grinds. That's a hollow grind, Tanto, and that's a flat grind. But I thought it'd be interesting to compare the two. And look, with these knives and the fake knives, or especially knives that are made in China, so when the US sends off their production to China, they're basically giving away any intellectual property to the Chinese. And that's a fact. And that's happened in whatever production that's been sent off to China. As soon as you do that, you give them your intellectual property. So China, whether you like it or not, owns the intellectual property for that blade, for that knife. And there's no doubting that. And that's what happens as soon as you engage China in the production process. You give them the rights to the information or to the design process of whatever it is. And I don't know how that stands with this particular knife. I really don't. I don't know if it's coming from the same factory. I presume so. And I don't know what steel that is. If they're using the cheaper steel or the steel that they use in the Buck knives that they sell in the US. But we'll just test what it is, and what it is what it is. So starting off with our rope, poly rope I think it is, or nylon, whatever it is. And remembering that the benchmark is the 440C, which is about 40 cuts or so. And what I will do is just put some tape around this, so I'm testing around about the same edge. I don't know if this is necessary, but anyway, it might take away one variable. So we'll make that about 5 centimeters. Of cutting edge. Test that. And we'll do the same on the Mtech, which is a cheap knife, by the way. I think this is about $25 or so. Something tells me that it's not going to be 440 type steel. But we shall see. We shall see. We'll start off with the Buck. By the way, when I record these, it's just raw footage. I'm not doing any kind of editing. So if there's pauses or whatever, I'm not stopping it and redoing it or anything like that. It is what it is. All I'm doing is a bit of a friendly cut test. Righto, starting with the Buck. Oh, sharpness test. Oh, wind's picking up here, so hopefully it doesn't mess my sound up. Pretty sharp. No problem shaving sharp. 10 cuts, let's see. And does a fine job cutting through that, I might say. And judging by the edge, it looks pretty good. Pretty good. So 10 cuts, easy. Let's try the cut test. The wind's blowing my paper around a bit. It's a bit grabby, actually. But there's no hiccups. Oh, it does feel a bit grabby. No hiccups, might be just dirt. It's making it grab a bit. I can't see any, not too much glinting. A little bit. I think it's going to get about 20. Next 10. Does feel like that's getting harder to cut now. And yeah, I'm starting to see a little bit of bending there, a little bit of lights on the edge. I have a feeling that 20 cuts is going to do it. It's very scratchy. Yeah, it's not really slicing too well. You can see it's grabbing, tearing. Yeah. So I would say somewhere within the vicinity of 15 cuts, because that's quite had it. Dull all over. So we'll call it 15 for the Buck, which is 420 HC. Is probably not that far from what I would expect, actually, maybe a bit more. Right, next is the Mtech. And that's how the Buck should be going through that. And it definitely wasn't doing that. Right, 10, here we go. There's 10. By the way, with that Buck knife, I think, I can't remember exactly, but I think it came in Buck packaging. So I really don't know. I would never sell it as a Buck knife. No way would I do that. But I just don't know. So I'm going to put a question mark up against it. All right, 10 cuts on that one. It's looking pretty good, I think. Let's see. Oh. Wow. Even 10 cuts make a difference. That really. Yeah, I can see lights on it for sure. It's just having trouble cutting that. I reckon they're pretty even, to be honest. Maybe the Buck's a little bit better. That's it. That's done. Unreal. And is that 440C? No way. If it is, it's terribly done. I would say not. But maybe even Mtech is not telling the truth, or it's very badly heat treated. Yeah, you can just see it's hiccuping everywhere. So that's that. Probably about the same. Maybe this one's a little bit better, 5 cuts better. That goes back into the drawer, I guess, and yeah, that's disappointing. Anyway, have a lovely day or night. See you later.